A dominant party system or one-party dominant system is a system where there is a category of parties, political organizations that have successively won election victories and whose future defeat cannot be envisaged or is unlikely for the foreseeable future. A wide range of parties have been cited as being dominant at one time or another, including the Kuomintang in the Republic of China, the African National Congress in South Africa, the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan and Bangladesh Awami League in Bangladesh. Historical overview. Opponents of the dominant party system or theory argue that it views the meaning of democracy as given, and that it assumes that only a particular conception of representative democracy is valid. One author argues that the dominant party system is deeply flawed as a mode of analysis and lacks explanatory capacity. But it is also a very conservative approach to politics. Its fundamental political assumptions are restricted to one form of democracy, electoral politics, and hostile to popular politics. This is manifest in the obsession with the quality of electoral opposition and its sidelining or ignoring of popular political activity organized in other ways. The assumption in this approach is that other forms of organization and opposition are of limited importance or a separate matter from the consolidation of their version of democracy. One of the dangers of dominant parties is the tendency of dominant parties to conflate party and state and to appoint party officials to senior positions irrespective of their having the required qualities. However, in some countries this is common practice even when there is no dominant party. In contrast to single-party systems, dominant party systems can occur within a context of a democratic system. In a single-party system other parties are banned, but in dominant party systems other political parties are tolerated, and operate without overt legal impediment, but do not have a realistic chance of winning. The dominant party genuinely wins the votes of the vast majority of voters every time. Under authoritarian dominant party systems, which may be referred to as electoralism, or soft authoritarianism, opposition parties are legally allowed to operate, but are too weak or ineffective to seriously challenge power, perhaps through various forms of corruption, constitutional quirks that intentionally undermine the ability for an effective opposition to thrive, institutional and/or organizational conventions that support the status quo, or inherent cultural values averse to change. In some states opposition parties are subject to varying degrees of official harassment and most often deal with restrictions on free speech, lawsuits against the opposition, rules or electoral systems designed to put them at a disadvantage. In some cases outright electoral fraud keeps the opposition from power. On the other hand, some dominant party systems occur, at least temporarily, in countries that are widely seen, both by their citizens and outside observers, to be textbook examples of democracy. The reasons why a dominant party system may form in such a country are often debated. Supporters of the dominant party tend to argue that their party is simply doing a good job in government and the opposition continuously proposes unrealistic or unpopular changes, while supporters of the opposition tend to argue that the electoral system disfavors them, or that the dominant party receives a disproportionate amount of funding from various sources and is therefore able to mount more persuasive campaigns. In states with ethnic issues, one party may be seen as being the party for an ethnicity or race with the party for the majority ethnic, racial or religious group dominating. For example, the African National Congress in South Africa has strong support amongst black South Africans. The Ulster Unionist Party governed Northern Ireland from its creation in 1921 until 1972 with the support of the Protestant majority. Subnational entities are often dominated by one party due to the area's demographic being on one end of the spectrum. For example, the current elected government of the District of Columbia has been governed by Democrats since its creation in the 1970s, Bavaria by the Christian Social Union since 1957, and Alberta by Progressive Conservatives 1971 to 2015. On the other hand, where the dominant party rules nationally on a genuinely democratic basis, the opposition may be strong in one or more national areas, possibly even constituting a dominant party locally. An example is South Africa, where although the African National Congress is dominant at the national level, the opposition Democratic Alliance is strong to dominant in the province of Western Cape. Examples: current dominant party systems Africa, Algeria, National Liberation Front, in power since independence in 1962, sole legal party 1962 to 1989, led by President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, in office since April 27, 1999, presidential election, 2009, Abdelaziz Bouteflika elected with 90.24% of the vote, presidential election, 2014, Abdelaziz Bouteflika elected with 81.53% of the vote, parliamentary election, 2007, FLN 136 of 389 seats, parliamentary election, 2012, FLN 208 of 462 seats, Angola, Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, Movimento Popular de Liberta Pica de Angola, in power since independence, November 11, 1975. Sole legal party, 1975 Euro 91, led by President José Copyright Eduardo dos Santos, in office since September 10, 1979, in the presidential election of 1992, dos Santos won 49.6% of the vote. As this was not an absolute majority, a runoff against Jonas Savimbi was required, but did not take place. Dos Santos remained in office without democratic legitimacy. Parliamentary election, 1992, MPLA 53.7% and 129 of 220 seats. Parliamentary election, 2008, MPLA 81.6% and 191 of 220 seats. New Constitution, 2010, popular election of president abolished in favor of a rule that the top candidate of the most voted party in parliamentary elections becomes president. New parliamentary elections held on August 31, 2012, MPLA 71% and 175 of 220 seats. José Copyright Eduardo dos Santos automatically confirmed as state president. Botswana, Botswana Democratic Party, led by President Ian Khema, in office since April 1, 2008, in power since independence in 1966, first elected March 3, 1965, parliamentary election, 2014, BDP 46.5% and 37 of 57 seats, Cameroon, Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, led by President Paul Biya, in office since November 6, 1982, in power, under various names, since independence, January 1, 1960, presidential election, 2004, Paul Biya 70.9%, parliamentary election, 2007, RDPC 153 of 180 TTYL, Chad, Patriotic Salvation Movement, led by President Idris Dar. Copyright by ITNO, in office since December 2, 1990, in power since December 2, 1990, presidential election, 2006, Idris Dar. Copyright by 64.7%, parliamentary election, 2002, MPS 110 of 155 seats, Republic of the Congo, Congolese Party of Labour, led by President Denis Sassou Nguesso, in office from February 8, 1979 to August 31, 1992 and since October 15, 1997, in power, under various names. From 1963 to 1992 and since 1997, presidential election, 2002, Denis Sassou Nguesso 89.4%, parliamentary election, 2002, PCT 53 of 137 seats, Djibouti, People's Rally for Progress, led by President Ismail Omar Guelleh, in office since May 8, 1999, in power since its formation in 1979, presidential election, 2005, Ismail Omar Guelleh re-elected unopposed, parliamentary election, 2003, RPP in coalition, 62.4% and 65 of 65 seats, Equatorial Guinea. Democratic Party of Equatorial Guinea, led by President Teodoro Obiang Mbasogo, in office since August 3, 1979, in power since its formation in 1987, presidential election, 2002, Teodoro Obiang Mbasogo 97.1%, parliamentary election, 2004, PDG 47.5% and 68 of 100 seats, Ethiopia, Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, led by Haile Mariam Desalegn, in office since August 2012, in power since May 28, 1991, parliamentary election, 2005, EPRDF 327 of 547 seats, Gabon, Gabonese Democratic Party, led by President Ali Bongo Ondimba, in office since October 16, 2009, in power, under various names, since November 28, 1958, presidential election, 2009, Ali Bongo Ondimba 41.7%, parliamentary election, 2006, PDG 82 of 120 seats, The Gambia, Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction, led by President Yahya Jammeh, in office since July 22, 1994, in power since its formation in 1996, presidential election, 2006, Yahya Jammeh 67.3%, parliamentary election, 2007, APRC 42 of 48 seats, Mozambique, Mozambican Liberation Front, led by President Armando Guebuza, in office since February 2, 2005, in power since independence, June 25, 1975, presidential election, 2004, Armando Guebuza 63.7%, parliamentary election, 2004, Frelimo 62.0% and 160 of 250 seats, Namibia, Southwest Africa People's Organization, led by President Hifikepunye Pohamba, in office since March 21, 2005, in power since independence, March 21, 1990, presidential election, 2004, Hifikepunye Pohamba 76.4%, parliamentary election, 2004, SWAPO 55 of 72 seats, Rwanda, Rwandan Patriotic Front, led by President Paul Kagame, in office since March 24, 2000, in power since July 19, 1994, presidential election, 2003, Paul Kagame 95.1%, parliamentary election, 2003, RPF 73.8% and 40 of 53 seats, Seychelles, People's Party, led by President James Michel, in office since April 14, 2004, in power since June 5, 1977, presidential election, 2006, James Michel 53.7%, parliamentary election, 2007, SPPF 56.2% and 23 of 34 seats, South Africa, African National Congress, led by President Jacob Zuma, in office since May 9, 2009, in power since May 10, 1994, parliamentary election, 2014, ANC 62.15% and 249 of 400 seats, South Sudan, Sudan People's Liberation Movement, led by President Salva Kiir Mayardit, in office since July 9, 2011, and was President of Southern Sudan since July 30, 2005, in power since independence, July 9, 2011, and in the Autonomous Government of Southern Sudan since formation, July 9, 2005, presidential election, 2010, Salva Kiir Mayardit 92.99%, parliamentary election, 2010, SPLM 160 of 170 seats, Sudan, National Congress, led by President Omar Hassan Ahmad al-Bashir, in office since June 30, 1989, in power since its formation, October 16, 1993, presidential election, 2010, Omar Hassan Ahmad al-Bashir 68.24%, parliamentary election, 2010, NC 306 of 450 seats, Tanzania, Chama. Kama Pinduzi, led by President Jakaya Kikwete, in office since December 21, 2005, in power, under various names, since independence, December 9, 1961, presidential election, 2005, Jakaya Kikwete 80.3%, parliamentary election, 2005, CCM 206 of 232 seats, Togo, Rally of the Togolese People, led by President Fagne Bekopourit, in office since February 5, 2005, in power since its formation in 1969, presidential election, 2005, Fargnasing copyright 60.2%, parliamentary election, 2007. RPT 50 of 81 seats, Uganda, National Resistance Movement, led by President Yoweri Museveni, in office since January 29, 1986. In power as de facto dominant party since January 29, 1986 as a non-party movement. Became de jure dominant party with the return of multi-party elections on July 28, 2005. Presidential election, 2006, Yoweri Museveni 59.26%, parliamentary election, 2006, NRM 205 of 319 seats, presidential election, 2011, Yoweri Museveni 68.38%, parliamentary election, 2011, NRM 263 of 375 seats, Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe African National Union a Euro-patriotic front, led by President Robert Mugabe, in office since April 18, 1980, in power since independence, April 17, 1980, presidential election, 2002, Robert Mugabe 56.2%, House of Assembly election. 2005, ZANU-PF 59.6% and 78 of 120 elective seats, Senate election, 2005, ZANU-PF 73.7% and 43 of 50 elective seats. Americas, Antigua and Barbuda. The Barbuda People's Movement has ruled the island of Barbuda since 1979, and has won every election for the island's seat in the National House of Representatives. Brazil. The Brazilian Social Democratic Party has ruled the state of São Paulo since 1995. The current term is due to end on January 1, 2015. On the other hand, its main rival, the Workers' Party has ruled the state of Acre since 1999, with a term also due to end on January 1, 2015. The Brazilian Democratic Movement Party has ruled the state of Goiás from March 15, 1983 until January 1, 1999. On the municipal level, the Workers' Party has ruled the city of Porto Alegre for 16 years from January 1, 1989 to January 1, 2005. Iroquois. The Seneca Party is the dominant party in the elections of the Seneca Nation of New York and has won every presidential election in recent memory. Only since the mid-2000s have there been any serious challenges to the party's dominance, all of which have failed. United States. The United States as a whole has a two-party system, with the main parties since the mid-1800s being Democratic Party and the Republican Party. However, some states and cities have been dominated by one of these parties for up to several decades. Dominated by the Democratic Party, California, District of Columbia has been continuously ruled by Democrats since the Home Rule Act of 1973 was passed. Chicago has been historically dominated by the Cook County Democratic Party. The office of mayor has been filled by a Democrat continuously since 1931. Milwaukee has been dominated by Democrats since the 1960s. Beforehand, it was dominated by the Sioux socialism movement. Hawaii has been dominated by Democrats since the Democratic Revolution of 1954. Beforehand, the state was dominated by Republicans and a sugar oligarchy. Massachusetts has been dominated by Democrats for several decades, save a few Republican governors. Maryland has been dominated by Democrats since the Civil War, with some exceptions. Dominated by the Republican Party, Arizona, a Republican Party stronghold in recent decades. Idaho has been dominated by Republicans for most of its existence. Kansas has been dominated by Republicans for most of its existence. Since 1967, however, 5 of the last 9 governors have been Democrats. Nebraska has been dominated by Republicans for most of its existence. South Carolina, Solid South. Dominated by Republicans since the mid-1990s. South Dakota has been dominated by Republicans for most of its existence. Texas, Solid South. Dominated by Republicans since the mid-1990s. Utah has been dominated by Republicans for most of its existence. Wyoming has been dominated by Republicans for most of its existence, save a few Democratic governors. Venezuela, United Socialist Party of Venezuela, previously Fifth Republic Movement, formed by a coalition of nearly all pro-Chavez parties. Led by President of Venezuela Nicolas Maduro, in office since 2013, presidential election, 2013, Nicolas Maduro 78%, parliamentary election, 2010, 96 of 167 seats. Asia/Oceania, Cambodia, Cambodian People's Party, led by Prime Minister Hun Sen, in office since January 14, 1985, in power since 1981, Malaysia, Barisan Nasional, a coalition of 14 parties led by the United Malays National Organization, led by Prime Minister Najib Tun Razak, in office since April 3, 2009, in power since independence, August 28, 1957, parliamentary election, 2013, UMNO 29.45% and 88 out of 222 seats, total for Barisan Nasional 47.38% and 133 out of 222 seats, Samoa, Human Rights Protection Party, led by Prime Minister Tyilari Basilio Malugol, in office since November 23, 1998, in power since 1982, parliamentary election, 2006, HRPP 35 of 49 seats, Singapore, People's Action Party, led by Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, in office since August 12, 2004, in power since June 3, 1959, parliamentary election, 2015, PAP won 69.9% of the popular vote and 83 out of 89 seats. Syria, National Progressive Front, a coalition of 10 parties led by the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party, a Euro-Syria region, led by President Bashar al-Assad, in office since July 17, 2000, in power since March 8, 1963, parliamentary election, 2012, Ba'ath Party won 135 out of 250 seats, total for NPF 168 of 250 seats. Tajikistan, People's Democratic Party of Tajikistan is headed by President Emomali Rahman, in power since 1994, presidential election in 2013 won by Emomali Rahman 83.92%. Since parliamentary election in 2010 holds 55 seats in Assembly of Representatives. Turkmenistan, Democratic Party of Turkmenistan is headed by Kasımgili Babayev since August 18, 2013. Currently holds 47 of 125 seats in the Assembly of Turkmenistan. Presidential election in 2012 won by Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow Hamdou 97.14%. Until 2012 it was the sole legal party in Turkmenistan. Yemen, General People's Congress, since 2012 led by President Abd Rabbu Mansur Hadi, in power since the unification of North Yemen and South Yemen in 1990, presidential election, 2012, Abd Rabbu Mansur Hadi 99.8%, parliamentary election, 2003, GPC 58.0% and 238 out of 301 seats. Eurasia, Armenia, the Republican Party of Armenia is the dominant party in Armenia since the election of Robert Kosharian as president, continuing under his successor Selzh Sergian. Azerbaijan, New Azerbaijan Party has been in power essentially continuously since 1993. Kazakhstan, Nurotan is headed by President Nursultan Nazarbayev since July 4, 2007. Since last parliamentary election in 2012 holds 83 of 107 seats in the Majlis. Presidential election in 2015 won by Nursultan Nazarbayev 97.75%. Turkey, Justice and Development Party, led by Recep Tayyip Erdogan, in power since 2002, general election, June 2015, 40.87% and 258 of 550 seats, local elections, 2014, 42.87%, Russia, United Russia, led by President Vladimir Putin, nominated President Dmitry Medvedev, in power since 2003, presidential election, 2012, Vladimir Putin 63.60%, parliamentary election, 2011, 49.32% and 238 of 450 seats. Europe, Hungary, in 1994, MSZP won 45% of the popular vote, which translated into 54% of the seats. With its long-term ally and coalition partner SZDSZ, they acquired 72% of the seats in the parliament, more than the 67% required for the modification of the constitution. In 2010, the alliance of Fidesz and KDNP won 53% of the popular vote, which translated into 68% of the seats. This enabled the governing party alliance to enact a new constitution for Hungary. Luxembourg, the Christian Social People's Party, with its predecessor Party of the Right, has governed Luxembourg continuously since 1917, except for 1974 Euro 79. However, Luxembourg has a coalition system, and the CSV has been in coalition with at least one of the two next two leading parties for all but 4 years. It has always won a plurality of seats in parliamentary elections, although it has lost the popular vote in 1964 and 1974. Madeira, Social Democratic Party has dominated political life in the autonomous region of Madeira since the first regional elections, in 1976. Alberta Joe Pound O. Jardim served as president of the regional government uninterruptedly from 1978 to 2015. Montenegro, Democratic Party of Socialists of Montenegro, founded in 1943 as Communist Party of Montenegro, part of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia, led by Milo Đukanović, five-time Prime Minister and former President, in power since establishment of communist rule in Montenegro Yugoslavia in 1944 May, presidential election, 2008, Filip Fujanović, 51.89%, parliamentary election, 2009, DPSCG and coalition, 51.94% and 48 of 81 seats. Serbia, Serbian Progressive Party, led by Aleksandar Vučić parliamentary election, 2014. 48.35% and 158 of 250 seats. Former dominant parties equals. North America, Canada, the Liberal Party of Canada was the dominant party in the federal government of Canada for so much of its history that it is sometimes given the moniker Canada's natural governing party. The party experienced several long uninterrupted periods in power including 1896 to 1911, 1921 to 1926, 1926 to 1930, 1935 to 1957, 1963 to 1979, 1980 to 1984, and 1993 to 2006. British Columbia, the Social Credit Party held power for all but 3 years between 1952 and 1991, winning 11 of the 12 elections held during this 39-year period. Alberta, the Social Credit Party governed Alberta from 1935 to 1971, and the Alberta PC Party held power from 1971 to 2015. Newfoundland and Labrador, the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador held power from Confederation in 1949 until Joey Smallwood's resignation as Premier in 1972, during the hung parliament created by the Newfoundland general election, 1971. Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, in the province of Nova Scotia, held office in an unbroken period from 1882 to 1925. During the period from 1867 to 1956, the party was in power for 76 of 89 years, most of that time with fewer than 5 opposition members. Ontario, the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, in the province of Ontario, held office uninterrupted from 1943 to 1985. Mexico, the Revolutionary Institutional Party in Mexico ruled from 1929 to 2000 and again since 2012. United States of America. During the era of good feeling, the Democratic Republican Party dominated national politics with no effective opposition from the Federalist Party or any third parties, allowing James Monroe to run unopposed in the 1820 presidential election. This dominance continued until the rise of the American Whig Party circa 1830. Southern United States. The South was known until the era of the Civil Rights Movement as the Solid South due to its state's reliable support of the United States Democratic Party. Several states had an unbroken succession of Democratic governors for several decades or over a century. Alabama, 1874-1987, Arkansas, 1874-1967, Florida, 1877-1967, Georgia, 1872-2003, Louisiana, 1877-1980, Mississippi, 1876-1992, South Carolina, 1876-1975, Texas, 1874-1979, Virginia, 1869-1970. During and after that movement, however, factors such as the National Democratic Party's support for the Civil Rights Movement and the National Republican Party's Southern strategy, and support for the application of religious values to politics eroded the South's support for the Democrats. Caribbean and Central America, the Popular Democratic Party in Puerto Rico from 1949 to 1969. The Antigua Labour Party in Antigua and Barbuda, 1960 Euro 1971 and 1976 Euro 2004. The United Bermuda Party in Bermuda from 1968 to 1998. The Progressive Liberal Party in the Bahamas from 1967 to 1992 and 2002 Euro 2007. South America, the Liberal Party of Colombia from 1863 to 1880. The National Autonomist Party of Argentina from 1874 to 1916, the Colorado Party of Uruguay, between 1868 and 1959, the Colorado Party of Paraguay, 1880 Euro 1904 and 1947 Euro 2008. They were the sole legal party from 1947 to 1962. The Revolutionary Nationalist Movement in Bolivia from 1952 to 1964. The National Renewal Alliance Party in Brazil from 1965 to 1979. Europe, in Turkey's single-party period, the Republican People's Party became the major political organization of a single-party state. However, CHP faced two opposition parties during this period, both established upon the request of the founder of Turkey and CHP leader, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, in efforts to jump-start multi-party democracy in Turkey. Italy's Christian Democracy dominated the Italian politics for almost 50 years as the major party in every coalition that governed the country from 1944 until its demise amid a welter of corruption allegations in 1992 Euro 1994. The main opposition to the Christian Democratic governments was the Italian Communist Party. The Portuguese Republican Party, during most of the Portuguese First Republic's existence, after the coup that put an end to Portugal's constitutional monarchy in 1910, the electoral system, which had always ensured victory to the party in government, was left unchanged. Before 1910, it had been the reigning monarch's responsibility to ensure that no one party remained too long in government, usually by disbanding parliament and calling for new elections. The Republic's constitution added no such proviso, and the Portuguese Republican Party was able to keep the other minor Republican parties from winning elections. On the rare occasions when it was ousted from power, it was overturned by force and was again by the means of a counter-coup that it returned to power, until its final fall, with the Republic itself, in 1926. The Party of the Right in Luxembourg, the Ulster Unionist Party in the former devolved administration of Northern Ireland between 1921 to 1972. The Swedish Social Democratic Party in Sweden from 1932 to 1976 except only for some months in 1936 it has also held a power the vast majority of elections even after 1976, and is still the largest party in Sweden. The Norwegian Labour Party ruling from 1935 to 1965. Though it has been the biggest party in Norway since 1927 and has been in power many other times. The Scottish Labour Party won every election to the House of Commons in Scotland from 1964 to 2015, where it was heavily defeated and reduced to one seat. It controlled the Scottish Parliament from its inception in 1999 until the 2007 election where it lost to the SNP. Converga NCIAI Unia Cubed coalition in Catalonia governed the autonomous Catalan government from 1980 to 2003 under the leadership of Jordi Pujol with parliamentary absolute majority or in coalition with other smaller parties. The Socialist Party of Serbia in FR Yugoslavia from 1992 to 2000. Ireland's Fianna Fáil was the largest party in Dáil Permel Irian between 1932 to 2011 and in power for 61 of those 79 years. However, the party were heavily defeated in the Irish general election, 2011, coming third. Asia. The Nacionalist Party in the Philippines was the dominant party during various times in the nation's history from 1916 to 1941, and on 1945. The Indian National Congress was in power both at the Union and many states from 1946 to 1989 and also from 2005 to 2014. In Bangladesh, the Awami League was the country's predominant political party between 1972 and 1975. After the military coup of 1975, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party became the dominant political force between 1977 and 1982. Under the autocratic regime of General Hossein Muhammad Ershad, the Jatiya Party was the dominant party between 1986 and 1990. Currently, Bangladesh Awami League again has become the dominant political force since 2008. The Sangkum in Cambodia was the dominant party under Prince Norodom Sihanouk as head of government from 1955 to 1970. The Social Republican Party of the Khmer Republic was the dominant party under General Lon Nol from 1972 to 1975. The Anti-Fascist People's Freedom League in Burma from 1948 to 1962. The Kuomintang established a de facto one-party state in the Republic of China on the mainland and subsequently on Taiwan until political liberalization and the lifting of martial law in the late 1970s. The Kuomintang continued to dominate the political system until the victory of the opposition Democratic Progressive Party in the 2000 presidential election. It has maintained control of the legislative yuan since 1928. Japan Liberal Democratic Party, in power 1955 1993, 1994 2009 and since 2012. Liberal Party in power 1948 1 quarter 1960. Democratic Republican Party in power 1962 1979 and Democratic Justice Party in power 1980 1 quarter 1993. South Vietnam Personalist Labour Revolutionary Party in power 1955 1963, National Social Democratic Front in power 1969 to April 1975. The Golkar in Indonesia from 1971 to 1999. Kalusang Bugang Lipunan in the Philippines from 1978 to 1986. Africa, the National Party in South Africa from 1948 to 1994. The National Democratic Party of Egypt, under various names, from 1952 to 2011, People's Democratic Party was in power from May 29, 1999 till May 29, 2015 when the opposition party All Progressives Congress won the presidential elections in Nigeria. The Democratic Constitutional Rally in Tunisia, 1956 to 2011, the Socialist Party in Senegal from 1960 to 2000. The Rhodesian Front in Rhodesia, under the leadership of Ian Smith, from 1962 to 1979. The People's Progressive Party in the Gambia from 1962 to 1994. The Party of Unity and Progress was in power in Guinea since its formation in 1992 until it was overthrown by a military coup in December 2008. The Movement for Multi-Party Democracy in Zambia from 1991 to 2011. See also, List of democracy and elections-related topics, Loyal opposition. References